Welcome to the IDP Plus Advice Show. Glad to have you again with us this week. Today, we are going to talk about top 24 risers and fallers, repeaters and non repeaters at the quarterback position. And with that, let's get started. Alrighty, I am your host, Ricky Rodri. You can find me on X at RickyRod66. I am joined, as I have been for the last several weeks, by my partner in crime, my friend Sean Teague. You can find Sean at Sean8386. As I mentioned in the opening, today we're going to talk about quarterbacks, top 24, who's going to repeat in the top 24, who's not going to repeat in the top 24. And we're also going to do something a little bit different that we have been doing in the last few shows, which is we're going to actually give you our top 12 rankings at the quarterback position. Now, this is the 6th of 9 shows in a series that we've been doing related to the top 24, who's going to climb in and who's going to fall out. We've completed all the 5 true IDP positions. If you've missed any of these shows and you're new to us, go back to the same IDP Plus channel on YouTube, or you can listen on Spotify. Go to IDP Advice and you'll find all the shows there that we've done on the defense side of the ball, and now we're moving to the offensive side. Okay, and so and another show, by the way, if you haven't done your rookie drafts, I did a mega deep 2-hour show on rookies, offense and IDP ranked together. That was after the NFL draft, so please take a look at that as well. All righty, so that's what we're going to talk about today. And one of the things, let's move to the next slide here so y'all can see this, folks. For those that are watching, one of the things we've talked about every week and wanted to reiterate is based on about a 10-year study of repeat rates of the top 24. It's amazing how much it changes from year to year. The quarterback position that we're talking about today, on average, only 7 of the top 12 repeat in the top 12. 18 of the top 24 repeat. So quarterback is the one position that actually has the most or the highest repeat rate. If you're looking on this slide, you could see we'll be talking about running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends in the next several shows. You can see the repeat rates much lower on the offensive side for those. So one of the things we've been doing too, so I'm going to go to the next slide as well, is we've been using the King's Classic scoring system. And one of the things, and by the way, it's a typical PPR type of system for the most part. Y'all can see the scoring system online for those that want to look at more details. But one of the things Sean has been doing is researching the King's Classic history to see how well it represents this 10-year average we've been seeing in the different positions. So Sean, welcome, and let the audience know what you learned as you looked at the King's Classic scoring, which once again is very standard for most offensive scoring systems. And did you learn, and did it kind of match these 10-year averages that we're looking at?
Yeah, so all the previous positions and the IDP side of this, the averages were pretty spot on with what I found in the King's Classic in its 3-year history. This one was a little more off. So last year there was 15 quarterbacks that repeated, and the year before that it was 13. That's in the top 24.
Oh, wow.
So
Big
yeah,
difference.
a big difference on the top 24 there. Now, when you came to the top 12, it was 7 last year, 5 the year before that. So that one's right where it needs to be. But yeah, I was surprised to see this being lower than the 10-year study, and I assume that's because we've lost a lot of quarterbacks over that time, retirements, things like that.
And last year we had a lot of rookies step
Right.
up.
So we're in that process of we're getting a lot of young guys coming in and kind of establishing themselves. So this will probably even out over the next couple of years.
Yeah, of course, last year 6 quarterbacks went round one in the top 12 or 13. I forget exactly which number it was,
Mm-hmm.
but in several of those, Drake May and Jane Daniels and Caleb Williams all showed enough to move into the top 24. And we may have some of those others move into our top 24 this coming year, and that's part of what we may be talking about here. So I've just pulled onto the screen for those that could see the top 24 quarterback scores based on the Kings Classic scoring system. And Sean, when you looked at this chart when I first sent it to you, what was your initial reaction in terms of, well, 18 of the 24 stay on, but six need to come off? Where you're like, it's going to be hard to find the six to pull off this list.
Yeah, at first I was surprised to see 4 rookies on there. I didn't think about the hit rates being as high for those guys. And then even a guy like Tua, who missed quite a few games, still snuck onto the list. So, what, how's that happened, basically? And it's injuries are the biggest thing to get some of these guys on the list. So, start taking some of the guys out that are backups, and then start taking out guys who have kind of lost their starting or in question here. So it was a little harder than my first glance, but not impossible this time.
I didn't find it as challenging either as some of the IDP positions that we had to do, such as edge and linebacker and so forth.
Oh
So
yeah.
I'm right there with you from that regard. Now, when we talk about the top 24 risers and fallers on most of our shows, as a reminder, what we've done is we just talked about who's moving in, who's moving out. We haven't ranked the top 24. So the same thing applies in this show when we talk about who's coming in, who's coming out. Now, what is new, which we will do, is we will rank the top 12. That'll be later in the show, but not necessarily as part of this top 24, who's coming in, who's going out. So just want to make sure y'all are aware of that. So before Sean and I show you who we are taking out of the top 24, just a quick plug for the Fast Draft app. You can join the Fast Draft app. And you can get up to a $50 match. That's up to a $50 match by using the code PLUS, PLUS, as in IDP Plus, of course. So if you put in 25, they'll match 25. You put in 50, they'll match 50. You put in 100, they'll give you 50. So use that promo code plus, take advantage of it. More and more people are having fun doing this. I had a couple of people reach out, talk to me about that, or DM me about it, I should say. And it's 6 rounds, goes really fast. 10 players per round, basically. They do have IDP as well for the IDP folks out there. So check it out. Check out the Fast Draft app. All right, with that, let's go ahead and move in and take a look at who we pulled out of the top 24. And as we talked about, we needed to pull 6. And we aligned, we being Sean and I, on 5 of the 6 that were going to be pulled out. We had one difference in terms of who we were not going to pull out. And so we're going to talk about a few of these here. And I'm going to start off by asking Sean about Sam Darnold. And you have Sam as someone who's not likely to repeat. So why do you have Sam on the list?
I
Granted, he
see.
finished number 8 last year.
Yeah, and that's a huge outlier to the rest of his career, and he's not in the same system this year. That was a big proponent for me to drop him in this, because he is going to a new system, new team, and he was not supposed to be the starter last year. It just happened when McCarthy tore his ACL, I believe. Um, yeah, huge outlier season. He's played with Joe Brady as his offensive coordinator before in Carolina, that being in 21 for about 8 games, where he had like 9 touchdowns, 13 interceptions. So there is a little familiarity there. I worry that Jalen Miro or somebody else that's going to get in here and get some work as well. Especially if this season turns bad for the Seahawks, I could see them pulling him out and seeing what they have in the rookie. I just don't have a lot of faith in Sam Darnold.
So what was interesting is Sean and I were talking about the show how I've just updated my projections for quarterbacks in terms of yardage, touchdowns, attempts, completions, interceptions, etc. Sam Darnold squeaked onto my list at number 23. You know, part of the reason he was able to sneak on is there's still a bunch of question marks at the bottom when you start looking at the bottom of the list. In terms of there's 32 teams in the league, and you got your Saints and your Browns as Giants as examples. And so with all that mush there, it allowed Darnold to sneak into just barely number 23 for me. So I can understand completely why you have Darnold falling off. He just barely squeaked on for me.
Yeah, it's yeah, I get it. I could see him squeaking in. Same thing with Tua here, and you decided to take him off the list. I get the injury concerns are massive. With his concussion history. Why don't you
Yeah.
go ahead and tell us a little more on that?
Well, so Tua, if you look in history since he's started in the league, 10, 11, excuse me, 10, 13, 13, 17, 11. So over 5 years, 1 year did he finish where he played all 17 games. Last year, he only finished with 11. So it's still amazing. It tells you a little bit about the quarterback situation for a lot of these weaker teams, that even with only 11 games, he was able to squeak into the top 24 here. I'm not betting, particularly with some of the quarterbacks coming from injuries, like Dak Prescott, which we'll talk about a little bit later. You have some other rookies or second year quarterbacks who expect to jump in. I don't think playing 11, 12, 13 games will allow Tua to stay in this position. On top of that, Tyreek Hill started showing some age last year. Jalen Waddle had some injuries. Jonnu Smith, the tight end, had a career year. And what you kind of saw happening too is Tua's time to release came down significantly, which means a combination of they're worried about him getting into the concussion, so get rid of it fast, along with the concerns about the offensive line. While they've made some investments, I'm not sure how great I feel about James Daniels coming off an Achilles tear, Patrick Paul taking over left tackle, who, when he was drafted last year out of the University of Houston, there's developmental time needed. So I'm not feeling much better about his offensive line either. Skill players injured or older. This is just not feeling really good for Tua here. So yanked him off the list.
Yeah, it's all valid stuff. It really is, and I can see it. The only reason when it came down to like him and Darnold, basically, uh, I feel like Tua and Michael Daniels there is they're on the hot seat, both of them, as far as I'm concerned. So I could see them coming out hot out of the gate and just lighting the world on fire for a little while, probably cooling off after that. But I'm expecting some big numbers to at least start the season, and then till the inevitable injury to come. But yeah,
I'm
that's
I'm with you. I think McDaniel's in trouble, and there's usually about 7 coaches fired every
mhm.
offseason on average, roughly, and I think McDaniel will be one of those 7 next year. So I'm right there with you.
Yeah,
So so Aaron Rodgers today announced on the Pat McAfee show that he's pretty sure this is going to be his last year. But when you and I both did our top 24 and who we're going to pull out separately, we agreed on 5 of the 6 names being Rodgers, Stafford, Cousins, Anthony Richardson, Russell Wilson. Darnold and Tagovailoa were the 2 we didn't agree on. But let's talk about Aaron Rodgers here, Sean, in terms of why did you take him off the list?
yeah, he's 41. He's at the end of his road as far as playing. I mean, he's still pretty efficient. Actually, wise, his interceptions went up a little bit the last 2 years or last 2 full seasons he's played. New system, and in this system, Arthur Smith he wants to run a run heavy, multiple tight end offense. That's not a lot of options to pass downfield. And last year, Rodgers had his third highest, I believe, passing attempts. And he didn't clear 4,000 yards. Only 25 touchdowns, I want to say, maybe a little higher. That feels like his ceiling right now. The last time he had a 300-yard game was in like 21 or something. Or no, he had one last year in overtime. Outside of that, that was the first since like 2021. So I'm not getting to 300-yard games. He offers zero rushing potential, which is what we need for fantasy. He's just at the end of the road here. And like I said, with Arthur Smith's offense that he wants to run, he just needs Rodgers to not screw up, basically, so they can get the lead and just run the clock out.
Yeah, and you brought up Arthur Smith and all, and um, blessings to Arthur Smith. His father passed away within the last week here since our last show. Who was also a former part owner of the Washington Commanders. But Rodgers has been playing in the shotgun, and Arthur Smith likes to have him under center. And that's just one more reason why I took him off the list in addition to what you talked about there. I just think that's something that Rodgers hasn't done for a while. I think there'll end up being some conflict. Talked about some of the IDP during the IDP session. A lot of my concerns about Pittsburgh. That's just another wrinkle as to why I think there'll be some Rodgers and Arthur Smith headbutting, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
And so I'm with you on taking off Rodgers.
Now, I do think one of the easier ones that we could agreed on coming off this list, besides Rodgers, was probably Anthony Richardson with the uncertainty, with he's shown and just what a mess his career started out to be. You want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, sure thing. So I love doing these narratives in my head in terms of playing out what I think is going to happen for different teams as I'm doing these projections. And so I looked at the Colts and I started looking at their schedule and I looked at their bye week of week 11. And so I saw that Daniel Jones, of course, with Richardson being hurt, missing some of the, OTAs and minicamp and so forth, that Jones has a good, strong lead. But still in the back of my mind, I'm feeling that the Colts want Richardson to take the reins and they got to figure out what they have or not. So my gut is telling me the following. They actually start Richardson the first 10 games of the year. Then they go into bye and they replace him with Daniel Jones for the next five. And then after they're eliminated out of the playoff race, Richardson goes in for the next two. So I see him starting 12. I see Jones starting five. That's how I think it's going to play out. Not everybody might agree with that. But in only starting and playing in 12 games, maybe 12 and a half if he gets benched for, Jones gets benched, midway through that fifth game in my narrative that I come up with. It's just not enough to put him up here, even with his rushing upside. Now, because of his rushing upside and his touchdowns, even as bad of a passer as he's been, and I gave him a little bit improvement credit, year over year, on a points per game basis, he could be pushing the top 12. But for this top 24 based on total points, only 12 games, he doesn't quite make it. So
Yeah,
that's the narrative and the thought process of how I think it's going to play out. But but I think they are going to give him a fairly long leash to try and see what he can do before they revert back to Jones, and then when they're out of it, it goes back to Richardson, but not enough to stay in the top 24.
yeah, I see a big rotation this year. Just you could have told me every 2 games they'll switch quarterback, and I would believe you. Um, I have zero faith in either one of these quarterbacks right now, and that was evident on later on when we see who we're adding. Neither one of us put Jones on there either. Um, yeah, his rushing upside is fantastic. His passing leaves a lot to be desired,
Yep,
and the Colts just cannot get a cohesive offense right now.
agreed. So another one we took off the list, we both took off the list, was Matthew Stafford. So Sean, you want to talk to the audience about that one?
This was probably the last guy I took off. I really wanted to leave him on the list, but when I look at He's going to be 37. Injuries are starting to hit more often, I'd say. He's not necessarily losing a lot of playing time, but they are affecting his game. No rushing upside again, just like Rodgers. You're the older guy. So no rushing upside automatically knocks you down in that bottom 12 of the 24. And then looking at the end of last year in the regular season, 4 of his last 5 games, we were lucky to get 150 yards out of him.
Yep.
And, so he really fell off. And I don't recall an injury during that time. So, uh,
And
now
he
you,
only had about 520 attempts for the whole season, which is not a
low,
whole lot.
right. I do think he got to upgrade at receiving, at receiver with Devontae Adams coming in over Cooper Cup. I don't trust his health, and this offense is leaning more towards the running game and the occasional pass. I think he just, to me, he just doesn't have the 4,000, 5,000 yard seasons coming up. I think 20 touchdowns is going to be about his limit.
Yeah, in the offensive line, Alaric Jackson once again has the blood clot issues, so he's
Mm-hmm.
losing a key offensive lineman. The offensive line wasn't that strong to begin with. Some tells me, well, he's not announcing it like Aaron Rodgers. This might be Stafford's last year as well.
I'm
If he
with you.
milks it, if he milks it one more year beyond this, I think it's going to be really ugly.
Yes.
But he's been beat up, he's played hurt so much and all. So Matthew Stafford, if you're in a dynasty league, as a side note, I'd be looking to trade him as quick as I could.
Yeah, the best thing you can hope for there is he comes out with a couple of big games and somebody needs a quarterback. You take whatever you can get for him at that point.
Exactly.
All right, one more here. Let's go with Russell Wilson.
All right. So Russell Wilson, um, another sort of roulette wheel in terms of who's going to be the quarterback for Giants and how many games they're going to play. My feeling is that Wilson's going to um, start 8 of them. I think Jameis Winston starts 2, and then Jackson starts 7. And if I remember correctly, I meant to write this down. It was the New England. It was going into the New England Patriots game. I could be wrong, and it was going to be at home. That I thought it was a good time for Dart to move in, or maybe it was the Packers or the Bears. My apologies, audience. But anyway, so I think the Giants have a. I shouldn't say I think. I know the Giants have a really hard schedule. Their bye isn't until week 14, so there's not an earlier bye week to for a natural transition and so forth. I don't I don't think Dart is going. They're going to want to give him a little bit more time before they throw him into the fire. So Wilson plays about 8 games, 7.5. Maybe he gets benched. Winston comes in for half a game and then starts the next couple, and then they finally go to Dart when it's clear they're going to be out of the picture. And right around that time, you could also expect to see a Daboll firing there in the middle of the year, quite frankly.
Yep.
Um, and the new guy's going to have pressure to put in Jackson Dart. So I think that's how it's all going to play out. Once again, I could be wrong. Winston's going to look good for a game and a half, and then that second game that he starts, he's going to throw about 3 picks, and then that'll be the end of that, and then Dart will go in.
That's why
So
we love him.
yeah, exactly. He'll throw a bunch of yards too. It'll be
Yep.
it'll be exciting. The Giants fans will be happy until he throws those picks, and one of them is a pick six and causes them another loss, and that's the Jameis experience. So anyway, all that being said, I love going through these narratives. I think most people would agree Russell Wilson's not going to start all 17 games, and for that alone, he'd come out. But since we're talking about quarterbacks, I wanted to share these thoughts in terms of because there's a lot of opinions out there. I want to throw my opinion there in terms of how I think it's going to play out and how many games these guys are going to play as you're looking at your teams in 2025.
Yeah, and to back you up there, the Giants have the second hardest schedule, strength of schedule for quarterbacks this season. So yeah, you're right. It is going to be tough. Russell Wilson, he's average at best, I'd say. Um, Another guy who it feels like his time is running out to be a full starting caliber quarterback. I'm right there with you. I don't see him lasting the full season. what a fun ride those couple of weeks of Jameis Winston are going to be, though.
Exactly, exactly. And at least at this point in time, the 2026 uh, rookie draft class looks to be pretty strong at this point in time. So maybe there'll be some new rookie quarterbacks coming in next year that'll help fill in for the Rodgers and the Staffords and the Wilsons and so forth. If Dart's not successful. But now we've talked about the ones that we think are going to fall out of the top 24. But it's time to talk about who's going to move into the top 24. But before we do that, just want to make a plug for idpplus.com, folks. Incredible content, rankings, great tools, focus on both offense and IDP, a lot of Discord help, great site with a lot of great writers, a lot of great uh, broadcasters, podcasters, whatever you want to call us, live stream us, etc. So check out idpplus.com, folks. Some really great info and materials there to help you win your championships. All righty. With that, now let's talk about who we're adding into the top 24. And once again, for the audience, this isn't ranked. And Sean and I do these separately, and then we pull these together. And 5 of the 6 we agreed upon, and only 1 we differed on in terms of joining the top 24. So we're going to talk about a few of these names here and give you our logic as to why. And the first one we'll talk about is you have the rookie Cam Ward in there while I had Michael Penix. So why don't you talk about why you decided to go with Ward maybe over Penix or others?
Yeah, so Ward, he was the top quarterback out of this class. Has been really overshadowed with all the running back talk and the Shadur Sanders stuff, and just kind of the forgotten guy. And a lot of people are not super excited about this class, and I get it. The narrative was this was a weaker class, but I do think Cam Ward's pretty solid. And the Titans, they were a bad team last year. That's how they got the number 1 pick. I don't see them being a whole lot better this year. I do expect him to have some struggles. There's not a lot of rushing upside here. Um, but yeah, I mean, he's going to offer more than probably Matthew Stafford and Aaron Rodgers. But I do think as the season progresses, we'll really see him hit his stride. And they're going to be behind in games, so garbage time points count. And that's where I see his biggest value coming will be in garbage time.
Yeah. So there's a perception that Cam Ward is this, massive running quarterback, and you talked about rushing and so forth. But if you watched him at University of Miami last year, he didn't attempt to run the ball a heck of a lot. He
Right.
was scrambling. He was trying to keep plays alive behind the line of scrimmage. He would continue to keep his eyes downfield and threw some YOLO balls, which he probably won't be able to get away with in the pros like he did in college on some of those. So I think it's a little bit of a misnomer out there that Ward is going to have all these rushing yards like a Bo Nix did or a
Yeah.
Jay Daniels or something like that. And folks don't count on that as a side
No.
note.
Yeah.
Uh,
Not at all.
yeah, now Ward just barely missed cracking my top 24 as well.
I have
Um,
him barely sliding in, and that's where I see him just sneaking in that top 24.
yeah,
Again, like you say, it's the rushing yards are not what we're looking at here. It's going to be the garbage time yardage and a few touchdowns when the game's pretty much out of hand.
exactly. Now, I went the opposite direction. Well, not the opposite direction, but I have a second year quarterback. This is the one where we differed, and
Yeah.
that's Michael Penix. And the thing with Penix is he doesn't offer you much running,
Mhm.
but at least he got a few games where he started last year. And in those games, his yards per attempt in those 3 games that he started was about 7.4. That's really high for a rookie quarterback. Many times, rookie quarterbacks, the really good ones, uh, last year was an unusual year, but a really, really good rookie year is about a 6.6 yards per attempt. Many of them in the 5.9, 6.0, 6.1 range, oftentimes. Penix was 7.4. He established a great connection with London. He was willing to chunk the ball, in 2 of the 3 games that Mooney played with him. He made Mooney successful. The one thing that was interesting, and we may talk about this more with the running backs next week, when Penix became a starting quarterback, um, the tosses to the short tosses to running backs just dried out. I mean, Robinson, I think he had only 6 catches in the last 3 games, if I remember correctly off the top of my head. The reason I bring that up related to Penix, though, is that means Penix wants to chunk it down the field. So I think he'll get enough yards and just enough touchdowns just to squeak once again to that top 24, probably in the 21 range, if I remember correctly, on my list, 21, 22. Once again, not top 12, but see him
Mm.
sneaking in.
My concerns with Penix are the injury history, and it's pretty extensive. And I honestly don't think we've seen the last of Kirk Cousins here. Uh,
Interesting.
yeah, I can see him getting back in this, and I do think that's one reason Atlanta hasn't been uh, pursuing as hard as they could to get rid of Cousins. I know the cap situations and stuff like that. A lot of that's tricky, but I think if a team was really that desperate, they would have got him by now. And I think Atlanta is actually happy to hold on to him because I think they're going to end up needing him at some point this year.
Okay, so your thought process, your narrative, as I like to call these, is that for all Atlanta's saying, putting their we're behind Michael Penix, we're
Yep.
100% behind him, all that kind of stuff, pumping him up, blah, 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 that if he struggles and they've got a chance to make the playoffs, particularly in the NFC South, we're going to see Kirk Cousins. Very interesting
Either
thought process, and that very well could happen, Sean. It's hard to argue that point.
yeah, any of these teams where I've seen a potential rotation or somebody staring over the shoulder of a starter were the ones I tossed out. Penix was the last one of those I tossed out because I do think he is given the reins. Again, with his injury history, you just talked about how he wants to throw the ball. So the more times he drops back to throw, that's more times he's squared up to get hit, and which I could see leading to potential injuries. And Kirk Cousins comes in, saves the day, and screws us up for another year for us.
So, so the last thing I'll mention on Penix, and we'll move to Bryce Young here, um, is that in the last 6 games of the year, including Penix starting the last 3 of those, Bijan Robinson averaged over 22 carries per game. So while his receptions dried up, his carries went up significantly. Part of part of the reason I'm a little bit worried about Robinson for next year from an injury perspective. But I do think they'll still run the ball a lot, and if Bijan gets hurt, they'll go to Algier. So I don't think Penix is going to chuck the ball 620 times this year, but I think he'll do enough to sneak in. So let's move to Bryce Young. You and I both had him on the list. I'll be curious to hear how high you had him. I know he wasn't in your top 12, and we'll see that in a little bit. But why don't you talk a little bit about Bryce Young and what do you see for this year?
So he almost snuck into my top 12. Actually, had
Oh,
him there
wow.
at one. I had him there at 1 point, and then I dropped him back out as I was playing with different scenarios. Uh, he looked fantastic. Well, I ain't gonna say fantastic. He looked very improved. He looked really good this final 5, 6 games last year. Uh, 10 touchdowns passing, 5 rushing. His completion percentage shot way up. He looked in control. He's in the same offense again this year, so I think the confidence is there. The coaches, they benched him early in the season after the first couple games. He was struggling, and but they never really gave up on him. Like they wanted him to come back and kind of take the offense over. And I think in everybody's eyes, he did. And I'm expecting he did that with no real top receivers. It was just kind of a jumbled up mess there. He's got a top rookie receiver now. His other weapons are coming back. They're healthy. This offense is being built around him. He's got continuity with his running back too. I see him as being a very sneaky play this year, especially in 2 quarterback leagues, super flex leagues. He'd be a fantastic number 2 that you can probably get later than a lot of these other guys. I think he's really going to show out this year and show why he was such a high pick.
Yep. So you brought up a lot of great positive stats about Bryce Young and all. I didn't have him quite as close to the top 12 as you did, and it was for the following reason. I still have him in the top 24,
Yeah.
but it was because of the yards. So for all the touchdowns, and you're right, he had 7 in the last 3 games, and then the 3 games before that he had 1 each, so 10 in the last 6 games. But his yardage in those last 6 games, starting from week 14, I'm sorry, last 5 games, 191, 219, 158, 203, 251.
Right.
So that's an unusually high TD percentage rate for
Hmm.
that amount of yardage. So I think there'll be a little regression there on those touchdown passes,
Sure.
and so that's part of the reason I didn't have him quite as high. Still have him in the top 24, but not quite as high as you did.
And to be fair, three of those games were in overtime.
That is
So,
three of those last 6. That is correct.
yeah, so that's a little padded as well. Uh, yeah, I can see that. I would like to see his passing yards go up, and I think with like Tech McMillan being there this year, I think that's going to be a big difference maker there, and getting some
Yeah,
more of those downfield plays and big chunks of yardage there. So I do see that being a big help to his stats.
that's a good point, sir.
How about Justin Fields? I think we both like him, and we'll see just how much here in a little bit.
Exactly. We both like him a lot. And those rushing yards, that rushing yard cheat code makes a
Mm,
huge difference. And do you know that he was, depending on scoring systems, either number 6 or number 7 um, in fantasy points per game at quarterback before he got benched?
and that
And a
was
lot of it, I'm sorry,
rushing.
Sean, go.
Yeah, a lot of that was because of the rushing, and that's why we got some of these higher proficient passers lower because they don't run. That's the difference in today's fantasy is the rushing yards in quarterbacks. Go ahead.
Exactly right. And the Jets seem committed to him.
Mm-hmm.
They Tyrod Taylor's his backup. They know what they have in Taylor there. He's a journeyman. He's a 36-year-old, I believe, somewhere around there. He's there more for mentoring. Fields is going to have a long leash for the whole year. I expect him to make it through all 17 games as a starter. And with that in the running upside, uh, I just think Fields is easily top 12 based on those facts. Anything else you'd add to that, Sean?
I'm right there with you. You could make the argument going back to Chicago when he was the full time starter there. Even though we didn't get the full, we didn't get all the passing yards. 2,000 yards probably and 15 touchdowns, 16 touchdowns passing. But a lot of that went to Cole Kmet, DJ Moore. I believe both of those had some of their best seasons under
DJ
Justin
Moore had
Fields.
a DJ Moore had his best season under on Justin Fields. That is correct.
Yeah, I believe Cole Kmet may have as well. If not, it was the second best. So he could support a top wide receiver, which the Jets have, and they just drafted a receiving tight end. So I'm seeing a big boost on a lot of the Jets players here, and you just add his rushing abilities. He's going to finish in the top.
Yeah. Since you brought up Mason Taylor, who the Jets drafted in the second round from LSU, just a shout out from my LSU Tigers for winning the College World Series this past weekend over Coastal Carolina. Go Tigers! And that's why I'm wearing the purple to celebrate them. Got to sneak into LSU, man. All righty. So, the others we agreed upon: Dak Prescott, Trevor Lawrence, J.J. McCarthy, in addition to the ones we talked about. Now, what's interesting about we're going to talk about Prescott a little bit later, so I'll hold off on that. So, one of the things I told folks that we would do different from some of our other shows is we would include our top 12 rankings at the quarterback position. And Sean, how about we move to that and share that with our audience?
Let's go for it.
All righty. So, what was interesting is Sean and I agreed on 10 of the top 12 quarterbacks for this coming year, um, 5 of which are new to the top 12 in total, because once again, 7 of the 12 are only expected to repeat. And so we're going to talk about a few of these and give some context and details about why we have them. And one of those that we both have on the list, you have at number 6, I have at number 10, is Dak Prescott. So Dak obviously was in the top 24 last year because of the injury, but Sean, talk a little bit more about why you think he justifies being in the top 12.
Well, the easiest was he had a really good year in 21, not so much in 22. 23, he was back on top. 24, not so much. So, following that pattern, he's got to have a really good season this year, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Um, this team is built for Prescott to throw the ball. They didn't do much at running back. I don't see Javonte Williams, Jaden Blue, or anybody really to take off and have a fantastic rushing year. I think we got guys that are going to stay back there and try to keep Dak clean so he can pass the ball. Bringing in George Pickens opens up CD Lamb even more, giving him two top tier threats. And he's always been a big fan of tight ends. So I see him just lighting it up this year. And I think they're going to have to because I think they're going to be behind in a lot of these games. The defense, even though they have Mike Parsons and we've raved about some of their other picks on there, or players, it's still not a great defense overall.
Yep, and you have Overshown, you have Diggs, who might not, both of those might not start the year. Siobhan Revel, the draft choice.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, still questionable run defense. I don't know how great Kenneth Murray is going to be. He'll get some
Right.
counting stats, but won't be the best football player. So you're right, their defense is going to stink. On offense, you talk about 21 and 23, the good years. He was healthy in both of those years. He
Yeah.
was top 5 in both of those years. 22 and 24, it was the injuries that knocked him out. You talked about all the great reasons. And his offensive line should be better with the drafting of Tyler Booker. Um, they love their Tylers. Tyler Guyton at left tackle, Tyler Smith at left guard, Cooper Beebe and Guyton, both of those guys going into their second year should be much improved. So I think this is just going to be a passing, passing, passing. The only reason I don't have Prescott quite as high, and I don't expect him to be top 5, top 6, is I think with all the injuries, I think his rushing is going to come down, and he's getting to that age. I believe it's 31, if I remember correctly, where you start seeing even a lot of the old mobile. That's where you start seeing Russell Wilson. You start seeing a decrease in his rushing, for example. You start seeing Aaron Rodgers running less around this age. I think you see the same thing with Prescott, particularly coming off of injuries in 2 of the last 3 years. So that's why I don't have them quite as high from the rushing side, but still have them in the top 12 for sure at number 10 for me.
Good stuff. And all this talk about rushing quarterbacks and how they're the main top guys these days. You put Joe Burrow ahead of all of them.
Joe Burrow is Ricky's early prediction for league MVP.
It's never too early to be wrong, folks.
And people can say, oh man, he just talked about his LSU bias, and here it comes through right here. Um, I think the Cincinnati Bengals defense is going to be even worse than last year. They
Yeah.
lost Pratt. They're replacing him with a rookie. They've pissed him off royally. We'll see if he's there. Um,
Hubbard's gone.
or if he gets traded. Hubbard's retired. Not that Hubbard was doing a whole lot. Shamar Stewart, over some stupid contract language, missed all of OTAs and mini camps. He was getting, quote, mental reps. But for someone who has upside but wasn't very productive, but he has got
Yeah.
athletic traits, you need him on the field as much as possible. He didn't get any of that. That's not great. And the situation for either one of those two isn't resolved. They uh, uh, they have several cornerbacks coming back from injury. Camp Taylor Britt missed some time. Dax Hill is coming back from an ACL injury. Jordan Battle unproven at the safety position. Geno Stone would have probably got benched on a lot of teams last year. Bringing Al Golden, I don't think helps him a lot. There'll maybe be some IDP opportunities, and we talked about some of these players on the IDP shows you can go back and listen to. But from a team defense, I think it's going to be even worse than last year. Joe Burrow's fully healthy going to this year, getting full training camp, full OTAs, full mini camps, et cetera. They're going to play more early in the year to get them off to a good start on the offense, where they got off to a little bit slower starts these past few years. I think Joe Burrow is going to throw for over 5,000 yards. He's going to throw for over 40 touchdowns. He's going to run in a few more. He'll run for about 150 yards, and he'll do just enough to overcome that defense to get them in the playoffs, which will be enough to get him the MVP award. So Joe Burrow, number one on the quarterback list, and your MVP for next year.
I,
That's a strong statement.
sounded really good. I just can't put him ahead of Allen and Jackson. These guys are firing on all cylinders. I could see him outdoing Daniels. But Allen and Jackson, you could have picked either one to be the MVP last year with their rushing upside, and they're not bad passers either. So they give you that full dual threat ability there.
Yeah.
So
And to
it's probably
clarify,
going to
and to,
come. Go ahead.
and to clarify, you weren't talking about Alan Jackson, the country and western singer. You're talking about Josh Allen and Lamar
Yeah,
Jackson.
Allen and Jackson. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, Allen Jackson. I don't even know if he's still active right now.
Oh, shoots. So, yeah, and so we may come back and talk a little bit more about Allen and Jackson in a little bit. But first, Justin Herbert made your list, didn't make mine. So talk about Justin Herbert and why you bumped him up here.
Yeah, I probably got him a little higher than where I would looking at it now because I did this a while back and just kind of once I completed it, I left it. I didn't want to go back and look at it because I don't like thinking more than I have to. But realistically, I would probably swap him.
Thinking's overrated sometimes.
Yeah, it takes a lot out of me, guys. Realistically, I would might swap him and Fields, but I still like Herbert being in the top 12. He's a proven passer. He's above average. The biggest knock against him is his rushing upside. There's not a lot of it there. He can scoot when he needs to. And just the way this offense is going to be ran, it's meant to be more run heavy, less passing. But they did invest in a bunch of receivers this year, so that gives me hope that they are going to open it up a little more. And this defense, I'm worried about just as much as some of these others that they will be leaky, I guess, to opposing teams. So I think he'll have to be in some shootouts this year, and I think the downfield yardage and touchdowns will keep him up there.
Yep. So I had Herbert at number 14 on my list, so I wasn't too far out of the top 12. And the real key is, does he run more?
Mm-hmm.
There was some talk that Greg Roman said they quote want to use his legs more, but he's so valuable in some of the games that he's missed over the past couple of years or whatever. When he's hurt, their offense struggles so badly.
Yes.
And so, despite the talk of wanting him to run more, I just worry about that. Will they actually do it? And so that's why I just barely have him outside of the top 12. But if he does run more, I'm with you. He jumps into the top 12. So if we get any signs that what Greg Roman talked about a couple of weeks ago is reality, then I think we bump him into the top 12 for sure.
And Greg Roman's history is with a lot of rushing quarterbacks, going back to the days of Kaepernick and I believe Lamar Jackson and all that. So I mean, he's had some good runners. So it's kind of weird that they do kind of clash a bit in playing styles, I think. So, but if they can get on the same page and really open things up together, it could be a really good season. Speaking of really good seasons and rushing, Mr. Bo Nix, we both had him in the top 12. I assume it's because you've seen how much he actually ran for last year.
Absolutely. So part of it, but do you know he also threw the ball 567 times, which is a hell of a lot for a rookie. And so I went back and started looking at what Sean Payton did with Drew Brees after the first year he came over. Now, granted, Brees wasn't a rookie at that point in time, but
Mm-hmm.
Brees's attempts continue to go up and up and up. So not only do I love him for his rushing, but I think his passing attempts will actually approach closer to 600 this year, which will give him more passing yards and probably give him an extra touchdown or two on top of that on the passing side. So, and this that was just his first year in the system, so I think he'll understand the Sean Payton system even more. And then you look at some of the weapons. Marvin Mims should take another step forward. Devon Vele should take another step forward. He and Sutton had a great connection. They drafted Pat Bryant, who's getting some rave reviews. They signed Evan Ingram after Jacksonville released him as a free agent out of the backfield instead of Javante Williams. All those catches he had where he averaged like maybe 6 yards a catch or whatever. You have a more explosive Marion Hampton who might end up getting 7.5 to 8 yards per reception on there. All those things triggering all goodness for Bo Nix along with that rushing upside. Strong offensive line. That's why I love Bo Nix. The one concern I had is the Denver defense is so good. Back to the opposite of what we were talking about with Prescott, that do they get ahead in games and they're running the ball a little bit more and he's not throwing it as much? That was the one thing I contemplated, but I didn't think it was enough, particularly with some of the teams that they're playing, at, for me to bump him down out of the top 12.
Yeah, I was right there with you. I was also worried about that because we are expecting this Denver defense to be really good again, especially that secondary. But playing the Chiefs twice, the Chargers twice, those feel like shootout games. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Raiders are right there with them as well. This should be a fun division, actually, as far as passing goes and quarterback play. With all the love for Bo Nix, I think he is the easy pick for this offense to draft. But I don't think I would touch many of these running backs or receivers just because I think it's going to be so spread out. It could be anybody's day at any time that
I
it's going to hurt all their values.
Other than Sutton and Ingram, I don't disagree with you with Troy Franklin and Mims and those guys. I think that'll be a mess. I think you have
Yeah,
Sutton, you have Ingram, and then all the others. So those two, I'd be willing to touch. The others, Vele, et cetera, maybe in a best ball kind of thing, you take a Marvin Mims, but not for a redraft. I'm with you on that. So now, one of the guys you had on the list that didn't crack my top 12 this year, which hurts me because I own him in one of my favorite dynasty leagues, is Brock Purdy. And one of the reasons he didn't quite crack it for me is some of the injury situations at wide receiver. But why don't you talk a little bit about why Purdy made your top 12 at number 10?
yeah, I'm not too worried about the injuries.
Uh-oh, we lost Sean temporarily here, so I'll jump in and I'll. So one of the things about Brock Purdy is that while there are some injury concerns with Brandon Ayuk, there are, Debo Samuel being traded away, who wasn't that successful either. But there clearly is some upside if George Kittle can stay in there for 17 games as he did last year. Ricky Pearsall, who of course got shot right before the season started last year and missed a good chunk of it, but showed some impressive traits later in the year. Jawan Jennings, although he was a former seventh round draft choice because he was slow. Jawan Jennings still was very effective, and we got to forget about that seventh round draft capital. And then, of course, there's the Christian McCaffrey side of things. So, Sean, I know you had a little technical difficulty. Glad you're back and all. So, why don't you talk about how you think Christian McCaffrey impacts Brock Purdy?
As long as he's healthy, it gives him another receiving option and opens up the other guys even more. Um,
So, you're expecting McCaffrey to to stay healthy this year.
Definitely healthier. I don't see him playing a full season again, but this system that Shanahan has created doesn't seem to matter who the running back is; they produce. Granted, Chris McCaffrey is a step above a lot of guys and opens up more passing options as well. So as long as he's healthy, I think it's just going to help Brock Purdy, especially in the beginning. And then by the time Ayuk comes back in and can get going, that opens up things even more. So I think McCaffrey will be healthy enough to at least get Ayuk back up to 100% running full speed. But again, draft capital is out the window with Purdy. We've seen what Shanahan can do with any quarterback in his system, where he made Jimmy Garoppolo startable. So with Purdy's efficiency, uh, not worrying about the injuries, we've seen Debo Samuel not really relevant last year. Ayuk being out, and Purdy still cracked the top 24. So the system is very solid, very quarterback friendly, very fantasy friendly, all over the place. So he's in that same system. I don't see any real drop for him unless he gets hurt, which there's a little concern there, but it's not enough to scare me off.
I had Purdy at number 15, just a hair behind Herbert. So
I don't hate that
close,
either.
yeah. So just really close there as well. And so then the last one we wanted to talk about in the top 12 was Patrick Mahomes, and it's time. So I went back and looked at Patrick Mahomes' yards per attempt since he started in the NFL. 8.1, of course, that was one game his rookie year. But since he took over, 8.8, 8.3, 8.1, 7.4, 8.1. The last 2 years, 7.0 and 6.8. It's time to fix it. And I think they finally have the players, and I think they'll have the health to do it. And I think there'll be less reliance on Kelsey this year.
Yeah,
Andy Reid even talked about he needed to protect Kelsey from himself, which leads me to believe Kelsey be on the field less. Rasheed Rice, still no sign that he'll be suspended. He looks like he's healthy coming off of that ACL injury last year. You got Worthy, who continued to improve throughout the year. You got Marquise Brown, Hollywood Brown coming back from injury. You got Juju Smith Schuster, who by some of the accounts here at OTAs and minicamp is looking a little bit like the old Juju. Of course, he's had several knee injuries. Maybe he's finally recovered some from that. I think and then there's a couple other sneaky things that I like. Elijah Mitchell, who they signed, Brashard Smith, who they drafted, who is a former wide receiver who's playing a running back who could play that Jerick McKinnon role. I think all those things are going to contribute to Mahomes getting that yards per attempt up, along with the number of attempts up. So the last couple of years, 581, 597. The years before that, 648, 658. I think he's up in that 625, 630 range again this coming year with a high yards per attempt. Because if you got Worthy going deep, you got Marquise Brown going deep, you got Rice kind of curling over the middle, defense going to have to pick their poison. I just really like this for Mahomes. And he does enough scrambling and running to get you that extra touchdown or two and maybe 150 yards as well. And so I see a big year for Mahomes as well. So that's Ricky's argument. It's time for him to get back to those deeper passes, more yak, etc. And we're going to have a big Mahomes year.
I don't hate it, and you're
You don't
right.
love it.
I don't love it. Uh, he does give you about 300 yards. Looks to be about what he hits about every year rushing. So he does have some rushing upside. He's more of a hey, everybody's running downfield. I'm just going to take off to get the first down kind of thing. But they all count. I don't know, man. I feel weird about the Chiefs' offense this year. I feel like we've seen how to beat them and beat them pretty soundly in the Super Bowl. And I think it's going to they're going to have to come out firing to beat that narrative. And I just don't know how cohesive this unit's going to be this year. I just see some dysfunction coming because you talked about saving Travis Kelsey from himself. I see that being potential blowups on the sidelines. Could be a distraction. Still some lingering issues at wide receiver there with legal stuff and all that. Potentially could happen, potentially not. Coming back from injury, Rasheed Rice as well. Will it? Will he be able to handle some hits to start the season with? I don't hate seeing Patrick Mahomes in the top 12. It was actually tough to take him out of the top 12. I just like some of these guys just a little bit more. I felt a little more safer about their scenarios. I just feel like the Chiefs are they've been so high for so long. I feel like the rest of the league is starting to catch up, and they're going to start knocking them down a bit. And I think it's going to lead to some home struggles this year.
Interesting. Okay. All right. Well, audience, that is Sean and I's top 12. You can, if you happen to be listening like on Spotify, for example, you come to our YouTube channel on IDP Plus, you can actually see the PowerPoint charts and take a look at the full list from 1 through 12 for both of us, in addition to the top 24 risers and fallers that we talked about earlier. So before we preview our next show, just want to put a plug in for the Fantasy Football Expo. It's coming up, folks, August 8th through 10th. Get your tickets. Canton, Ohio, home of the Hall of Fame, the NFL Hall of Fame, which is just fantastic. I've been through it multiple times, and every time I go through, I'm learning more and more and just enjoying it every time. I'll be there. Unfortunately, Sean can't be this year, but love to meet you. If you see me, please come up and introduce yourself. But there's a lot of people from SiriusXM, a lot of people that are very famous in the industry. You heard us talking about the King's Classic draft, where you'll be able to watch some of the folks like the Jeff Manses of the world and Jeff Ratcliffe's and so forth. So I think they'll be back this year. I need to double check, but I think they are. But anyway, they'll be back. Or some of the IDP folks. I'll be in the King's Classic IDP draft. There's a women's, so a lot of famous women in the industry. There's a Women's Kings Classic division now. So anyway, come on out, not to mention the cornhole, not to mention the poker tournaments, not to mention draft night out where you can join leagues and meet a bunch of great people. And then the expo itself on the Sunday with all kind of great forums and booths. And also come check out the Fantasy Football Expo. And also go to the Amazon and check out the Fantasy Football Consistency Guide by Bob Lung, who runs the Fantasy Football Expo. Great material, great source. Check it out and see why consistency can be so important in winning your championships. All right, with that, let's do a quick preview of our next show. And the next show we'll be talking about running backs and who's coming out of the top 24 and who is going into the top 24. And when you look at this list, that's going to be hard to do because 12 of the top 24 fall out on average every year based on the study of the last 10 years. So Sean and I are going to take out 12 of these and we're going to add in 12. Sean, how are you feeling as you're looking at this list to take out 12?
Not great. I think I got three right away, but outside of that, I'm going to be splitting hairs.
It will be interesting. I think there's a few easy ones and there's going to be some really
Mm,
challenging ones. And if you haven't read about the Cursive 370, go out and read Gary Davenport's article in Football Guys. It's a refresh it's Cursive 370. If you've never heard of it, it's been up there for a while. Go and
yeah.
check it out and read it because it could come up in the discussions next week. I'll just leave it at that. Sean, any final words as we wrap up today's show?
Do not forget about the Madden curse as well. We're looking at these running backs. I want to throw that one out there too.
Very good. That's a great point. All right, everybody. Well, look, if you like this show, please give it a thumbs up on YouTube. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions, please add it on the YouTube channel on the show. Sean and I have been following up on those and reviewing them and giving feedback. So if you've commented previously, you can go back and look. If you hadn't gone check, you can see our comments or answers, things along those lines. Give me a follow at RickyRod66. Give Sean a follow at Sean8386 as well. Once again, you can catch all these on replay on Spotify or on the IDP Plus YouTube channel under the IDP advice section. Go back and check out all those 5 IDP shows. Even if you don't play IDP, go check it out. It's a great learning opportunity and it might get you interested in playing IDP, which has made fantasy football so much more fun for me. It was great before. It's even more fun now. Same for Sean as well. Of course, he's been playing it a lot longer than I have, though.
Long
All
time.
righty. I'm sorry, Sean?
Long time. Long time.
Long time. Yeah. I think he could have had a kid graduate high school. He's been playing that long in that
He's
time
old
span.
enough to drink at this point. Yeah. IDP, I've been playing for probably 22 years, 23, somewhere around there.
So if you go back and listen to the shows, know you have a real expert there and Sean helping you out there. All right. With that, we will see you in another week or so. On behalf of Sean, this is Ricky Rodrigue wishing you, your family, and your friends great health and happiness. Be kind to one another, and we're out of here, and we'll catch you next week.
Thank you for watching the IDP Plus YouTube network. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Be sure to tap the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload new content.